Admiral Jae-won Kim stood in the observation deck of the massive space station, watching the military parade through the transparent walls. Ships from 100 different worlds floated past in perfect formation. Each alien fleet looked more impressive than the last. The Velkari brought their massive battle cruisers, each one gleaming like a silver moon. The Torgathi displayed their carriers, each capable of launching 1,000 fighters. The Rendaks showed off their destroyers, bristling with enough weapons to crack a planet. Then came Earth's turn. 12 frigates and 8 destroyers drifted into view. They looked small and fragile compared to what came before. Jae-won heard the laughter before he saw who was making the sounds. Across the observation deck, alien diplomats pointed at Earth's ships and made jokes. Some didn't even bother to hide their amusement. "Is that all they brought?" a Velkari officer said loudly. "I've seen mining vessels larger than those." More laughter filled the room. Jae-won kept his face calm, but his hands formed fists behind his back. He had served in Earth's military for 35 years. He had fought pirates in the outer colonies. He had protected human settlements from raiders. He had lost friends in battles that these aliens would never know about. And now they laughed. Captain Hanali stood beside him. She was young, only 30 years old, but already one of Earth's best tactical officers. Her jaw was tight as she watched the display. "Admiral," she said quietly, "permission to speak freely?" "Granted," Jae-won replied. "I want to punch that Velkari in his stupid face." Despite everything, Jae-won almost smiled. "Get in line, Captain." The military review ended an hour later. Jae-won made his way through the crowded corridors of the station, heading back to his quarters. Along the way, he passed groups of alien soldiers. Some nodded respectfully. Most ignored him. A few made comments just loud enough for him to hear. "Humans playing at war," one said. "Give them a few years, they'll quit like they always do." Another added. Jae-won kept walking. He had learned long ago that responding only made things worse. Earth had joined the Galactic Union 53 years ago, full of hope and excitement. They thought they would find friends among the stars. Instead, they found a hierarchy that put humans at the very bottom. Back in his quarters, Jae-won activated his secure communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Dong-hyun Park's face. The ambassador looked tired. He had just spent 6 hours in diplomatic meetings defending Earth's contributions to the Union. "How bad was it?" Jae-won asked. Dong-hyun rubbed his eyes. "General Thra suggested we donate our fleet to the Velkari as target practice." Half the council laughed. The other half agreed with him. "And you?" "I smiled and thanked them for their valuable input," Dong-hyun said. His voice was bitter. "What else could I do? We need the Union's protection. Our colonies are vulnerable. We can't afford to make enemies." Jae-won leaned closer to the screen. "How much longer do we have to endure this?" "Is it ready?" Dong-hyun asked, not answering the question. "Almost. Commander Sang-woo says another month, maybe 2. We might not have that long." Dong-hyun's expression grew serious. "The Draxian sovereignty is making moves near our borders. There's talk of war. If fighting starts, the Council will send our ships to the most dangerous positions. They'll use us as shields while their own fleets stay safe." Jae-won had expected this. It was always the same pattern. Human soldiers died first. Human ships took the worst assignments, and when victories came, other species claimed the credit. "I'll tell Sang-woo to work faster," Jae-won said. "Do that. And Jae-won, be careful. If they discover what we're building, they won't," Jae-won interrupted. "We've been too careful for that." The call ended. Jae-won sat in silence for a moment, then pulled up the classified files on his personal terminal. Images appeared on the screen, showing a massive construction project hidden in the outer reaches of Earth's solar system. He smiled for the first time that day. Meanwhile, Captain Hana Lee walked through the station's common area, trying to clear her head. She found a quiet corner and ordered a drink from the automated dispenser. Before she could take her first sip, 3 Velkari officers sat down at the next table. They were loud and drunk. "Did you see the human ships?" one of them said. "My fighter carries more firepower than their entire fleet." "They're primitives," another agreed. "They discovered space travel only 200 years ago. We were crossing galaxies before their species learned to make fire." The third officer noticed Hana watching them. "Oh look, we have an audience. Tell me, human, how does it feel knowing your fleet is a joke?" Hana stood up slowly. Every instinct told her to walk away. Instead, she approached their table. "You're talking about the review today?" she asked calmly. "What else would we be talking about?" The Valkyrie officer sneered. Then you missed the point of the exercise, Hana said. This wasn't a display of strength. It was a tactical assessment. And from what I saw, 3 of the Rendax destroyers had misaligned power cores. Their shield generators would fail under sustained fire. The Torgathi carriers kept too tight a formation. One good strike on their fuel lines would create a chain reaction. And your Valkyrie cruisers? Beautiful ships. Completely vulnerable to small fighter attacks from below. Your point defense systems have a blind spot covering nearly 40 degrees. The Valkyrie officers stared at her. One of them opened his mouth to respond, but Hana continued. Earth's fleet might be small, but we know how to use what we have. We study our enemies. We find their weaknesses. We adapt and survive. That's what primitives do. She picked up her drink and walked away, leaving the Valkyrie officers in stunned silence. Her hands were shaking, but she felt better. Small victories, she told herself. They were all small victories. An hour later, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency protocols activated automatically. Jae-won ran to the command center, where Admiral Dong-hyun and dozens of other officials were gathering. A holographic display showed the border regions of Union space. Chancellor Vex, the Valkyrie leader of the Galactic Union, stood at the center of the room. His face was grim. The Draxian sovereignty has launched attacks on 3 of our border systems, he announced. They've destroyed our early warning stations and are pushing deeper into Union territory. This is war. The room erupted into chaos. Admirals shouted orders. Diplomats argued about responses. Through it all, Jae-won felt a cold certainty settle over him. He knew what was coming next. Chancellor Vex raised his hand for silence. We're mobilizing all available fleets. Earth's 3rd Fleet will deploy to the Helios Gate. You'll provide defensive support for the main battle group. Defensive support. The words were meaningless. Jae-won knew the real meaning. Cannon fodder. Earth's ships would be positioned where enemy fire would hit them first, protecting the more valuable alien fleets. When do we deploy? Jae-won asked, his voice steady. Immediately, Chancellor Vex replied. You have 6 hours to prepare your ships. Jae-won saluted and left the command center. Hana fell into step beside him as they walked toward the docking bay. They're sending us to die, she said quietly. I know, Jae-won replied. We could refuse, and Earth would be expelled from the Union. Our colonies would be defenseless. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Hana asked, what do we do? Jae-won stopped and looked at her. We do our duty. We protect Earth. And we buy Sang-woo enough time to finish what he's building. Because when that's done, everything changes. And if we don't survive that long, then other humans will finish what we started. Jae-won started walking again. Alert the fleet. Tell them to prepare for combat, and Hana, make sure they know they're fighting for something bigger than themselves. They're fighting for Earth's future. 6 hours later, Earth's 3rd Fleet left the station and jumped into hyperspace, heading toward a battle that would change everything. The journey to the Helios Gate took 3 days. Admiral Jae-won spent most of that time in his command chair on the bridge of the EDS Indomitable, Earth's flagship. Around him, his crew worked quietly, checking systems and running combat simulations. Everyone knew what waited for them at the end of the journey. Captain Hana Lee stood at the tactical station, studying star charts and enemy movement patterns. She had barely slept since they left the station. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing, their small fleet being torn apart by superior Draxian forces. Admiral, she said suddenly, I need to show you something. Jae-won walked over to her station. Hana pulled up a tactical map showing the Helios Gate and surrounding space. Red markers indicated where Union forces would be positioned. A small blue cluster showed Earth's assigned location. We're being placed here, Hana said, pointing to the blue markers, right in the main approach vector. Any Draxian force coming through the gate will hit us first. I know, Jae-won said, but look at the Union's main battle group. They're positioned 3 million kilometers behind us, protected by the asteroid field. If we get overwhelmed, it will take them 20 minutes to reach us. We'll be dead long before that. I know, Jae-won repeated. Hana looked at him. You're not surprised. No. This is what they always do to us. Jae-won placed his hand on her shoulder. But we're going to survive anyway. We always do. While the 3rd Fleet traveled toward battle, something very different was happening in Earth's solar system. Hidden in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto's orbit, a massive structure floated in space. It looked like an ordinary mining station from a distance. Up close it was anything but ordinary. Commander Sang-Woo Choi stood in the main control room surrounded by screens showing construction progress. He was exhausted. His team had been working 20-hour days for the past month, racing to complete their project. Around him, hundreds of engineers and technicians moved through the facility, making final adjustments. The door opened and President Kyung-mi Yoon entered the room. She was Earth's elected leader, a former military strategist who understood exactly what was at stake. Sang-Woo straightened his uniform and saluted. "At ease, Commander," Kyung-mi said. "Show me." Sang-Woo led her through a series of corridors. They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each one more heavily guarded than the last. Finally, they reached a massive airlock. Sang-Woo entered a code and the door slowly opened. Beyond the airlock was the largest construction bay Kyung-mi had ever seen. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, and in the center of that enormous space, held by thousands of support beams and scaffolding, was a ship that made everything else look small. The EDS Titan was 12 kilometers long. Its hull was black, darker than space itself, constructed from materials that seemed to absorb light. The ship's design was unlike anything else in the galaxy. Where other vessels looked mechanical and industrial, the Titan looked organic, almost alive. Weapons covered every surface, but they didn't look like normal weapons. They looked wrong somehow, as if they operated on principles that shouldn't exist. "My God," Kyung-mi whispered. "We found the final piece in the Antarctic archives 3 months ago," Sang-Woo explained. "Mathematical formulas that let us manipulate dimensional space. Whoever built those archives, they were far more advanced than any current civilization. How much more advanced? We don't know. The archives are millions of years old, maybe older. But the knowledge inside them, it works. We tested it." Kyung-mi walked closer to the observation window. "Is it ready?" Sang-Woo hesitated. "The structure is complete. The engines work. The shields are functional. But the main weapon? We've only tested it once in simulation. The power requirements are enormous. If something goes wrong, how long do you need?" 2 more weeks to be safe. 1 week if we push it." "You have 3 days," Kyung-mi said. Sang-Woo's face went pale. "Madam President, that's not enough time. We need to run more tests. We need to make sure—" "The Third Fleet is heading into battle right now," Kyung-mi interrupted. "They're being sent to die because the galaxy thinks we're weak. If we don't act now, we'll lose them. We'll lose everything we've worked for." She turned to face him. 3 days, Commander." "Make it happen." Sang-Woo swallowed hard, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Back at the Helios Gate, Earth's Third Fleet had arrived at their assigned position. The massive ring of the gate hung in space before them, a structure left behind by an ancient civilization. It allowed instant travel across vast distances. Right now, it was the front line of a war. Lieutenant Yoon-hee Shin sat in the cockpit of her fighter, docked inside the Indomitable's hangar bay. She was one of Earth's best pilots, with 93 successful missions. She checked her systems for the 10th time, making sure everything was perfect. "Blue Squadron, this is Blue Leader," she said over the comm system. "Sound off." One by one, her pilots reported in. 12 fighters, 12 voices. They were ready. The wait was agonizing. Hours passed with no sign of enemy activity. The crew tried to stay alert, but tension wore on everyone. Some played cards. Others wrote letters home. A few just stared at the stars, then the sensors lit up. "Contact," a sensor officer shouted. "Multiple ships coming through the gate." Alarms blared across every ship in the fleet. J1 stood up from his command chair. "All hands to battle stations. Fighter squadrons launch when ready." The Helios Gate activated with a flash of blue light. Ships began pouring through. Draxian vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything Earth had. Cruisers, destroyers, battleships. They kept coming, an endless wave of enemy forces. "Count?" J1 asked. 47 ships confirmed, the sensor officer reported. "More still coming through." Hana looked at her tactical display. The numbers were impossible. Earth's 20 ships against more than 50 Draxian vessels. "It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. They outnumber us 3-1, she said. "Then we'll have to be 3 times better," J1 replied. "All ships, this is Indomitable. Remember your training. Protect each other. Make every shot count," he paused. "And know that Earth is proud of you. Fire when ready." Space erupted with weapons fire. Earth's ships scattered, using speed and maneuverability to compensate for their lack of firepower. Kunhi led her fighter squadron into the chaos, dodging enemy fire and striking at vulnerable points on larger ships. The Draxians advanced in a massive formation, overwhelming Earth's position through pure numbers. The EDS Defiant took a direct hit and exploded. The EDS Guardian lost its engines and drifted helplessly. One by one, Earth ships were being destroyed. On the Indomitable's bridge, sparks flew from damaged consoles. The ship shook with each enemy hit. Jaewon held onto his chair as the deck tilted beneath him. "Shields at 30%, an officer shouted. "Hull breach on deck 7. We've lost main weapons." Hana watched as another Earthship disappeared from her tactical display. Then another. They were losing. They had always been going to lose. "Admiral," she said quietly, "we should retreat. If we stay, we all die." Jaewon looked at the tactical display. She was right. But if they retreated, the Draxians would push through the gate unopposed. They would reach Union territory, and Earth would be blamed for the failure. He was about to give the order to fall back when the sensor officer gasped, "Sir, new contact. Something just jumped into the system." "Draxian reinforcements?" Jaewon asked. "No, sir. I don't know what it is. The signature is massive, bigger than anything in the database." On the main view screen, the stars seemed to bend and twist. Reality itself appeared to fold. And through that impossible distortion, something emerged. A ship. No, calling it a ship was inadequate. It was a mobile fortress, a weapons platform, a monument to human engineering. It was 12 kilometers of pure destructive potential wrapped in black armor that seemed to drink in the light of nearby stars. Every weapon in the battle fell silent. Both Earth forces and Draxians stopped fighting, staring at the impossible sight before them. A transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was calm and professional. "Third Fleet, this is EDS Titan Captain Tae-Young Seo commanding. Admiral, your reinforcements have arrived." Jaewon touched the blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. Then he started laughing. He couldn't help it. After years of mockery, after decades of being treated as inferiors, humanity had finally built something that made the galaxy stop and stare. "Captain Seo," Jaewon said. "It's good to see you." The Draxian commander's voice came over the open channel, full of disbelief. "What is that thing?" Tae-Young's response was simple. "That's humanity. And we're done being laughed at." The Draxian fleet hung in space, weapons still charged but no one firing. Every ship in the battle zone was trying to understand what they were seeing. The EDS Titan drifted forward slowly, its massive form blocking out stars as it moved between Earth's damaged fleet and the enemy forces. Captain Tae-Young Seo stood on the bridge of the Titan, his hands clasped behind his back. He was 42 years old, chosen to command this vessel because of his ability to think differently than other officers. Where most commanders saw problems, Tae-Young saw opportunities. Where others followed standard tactics, he invented new ones. "Status report," he said calmly. "All systems operational," replied Dr. Miran Kwan from the science station. She was the Titan's chief science officer, a specialist in dimensional physics who had helped design many of the ship's unique systems. "Shields at maximum. Weapons charged. Dimensional drive stable." "Good." Tae-Young looked at the tactical display. The Draxian fleet had spread out into an attack formation. There were 63 enemy ships now, including 3 massive dreadnoughts. Against any normal fleet, those numbers would be overwhelming. "Open a channel to the Draxian commander." A face appeared on the main screen. The Draxian commander was a being with gray skin and 4 eyes, wearing elaborate military decorations. He looked angry and confused. "This is Commander Drask of the Sovereignty 7th Armada," the alien said. "Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." "I am Captain Tae-Young Seo of the Earth defense ship Titan," Tae-Young replied. "You have attacked Union space. You have fired on evacuation ships carrying civilians. You have violated every treaty and law of civilized warfare. I'm giving you one chance to surrender and withdraw." Drask stared at him for a moment, then started laughing. "You think one ship frightens me? I have 63 vessels under my command. I will tear your primitive vessel apart." "I gave you a chance," Tae-Young said. He nodded to his tactical officer. "You may fire when ready." The Draxian fleet opened fire first. Thousands of missiles and energy beams streaked toward the Titan. On any other ship, that much firepower would have meant instant destruction. The crew would have seconds to say goodbye before dying, but the Titan was not any other ship. Activating defense grid, Dr. Miran announced. Around the Titan, space itself seemed to shimmer. The ship's point defense systems came online, creating overlapping fields of destruction. Advanced targeting computers tracked every incoming missile simultaneously. Laser batteries fired in perfect coordination. Each burst of energy hit its target with impossible accuracy. Missiles exploded one after another, creating a wall of fire between the Titan and the Draxian fleet. Energy beams hit the ship's shields and simply stopped, their power absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. In less than 10 seconds, every single attack had been neutralized. Impossible, someone whispered on the Draxian command channel. Nothing is impossible, Tae-Yang said. It just requires proper engineering. Now let me show you what this ship can do. The Titan's main weapons powered up. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the system. The ship's hull began to glow with a strange light that hurt to look at directly. Dimensional cascade cannon charging, Dr. Miran reported. Her voice was steady, but Tae-Yang could hear the excitement beneath. This was the first time they would use the weapon in actual combat. 90%, 95, 100%. Weapon ready. Target the 3 dreadnoughts, Tae-Yang ordered. Fire. The front of the Titan opened like a flower, revealing a weapon that shouldn't exist. Energy gathered at its center. Not normal energy, but something else, something that made reality itself bend and twist. The weapon fired. What happened next would be recorded in history books and studied by military academies for generations. The beam from the dimensional cascade cannon didn't just travel through space. It tore holes in reality itself. The first Draxian dreadnought simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive warship 3 kilometers long. The next moment there was nothing. Not debris, not wreckage. Just empty space where a ship used to be. The second dreadnought lasted slightly longer. The beam hit it and the ship began to fold in on itself, collapsing into a point so small it couldn't be seen. Then even that point vanished, taking the surrounding space with it. The third dreadnought tried to run. Its engines fired at maximum power, trying to escape. It didn't matter. The dimensional cascade caught up with it and pulled the ship backward into nothing. The vessel stretched like rubber, then snapped out of existence. Complete silence filled the communication channels. Every being in the system, human and alien alike, stared at their sensors in disbelief. What did you do? Drask's voice shook. What kind of weapon is that? The kind that ends wars, Tae-Yang replied. Surrender now, or I will continue firing. But Drask had committed his fleet too deeply to turn back. Pride and fear drove him forward. All ships, attack that vessel. Concentrate all fire on a single point. We must destroy it. The Draxian fleet surged forward in a desperate charge. Cruisers and destroyers fired everything they had. The space between the two forces filled with weapons fire so thick it looked like a solid wall of light. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Jae-Won watched the battle unfold. His ship was heavily damaged, barely able to maintain position. But he couldn't look away. This was what humanity had built in secret. This was what years of mockery and disrespect had created. Sir, we should help them, Hana said. Jae-Won shook his head. Our weapons would be useless at this range, and I don't think the Titan needs our help. He was right. The Titan moved through the Draxian fleet like a shark through small fish. Its shields absorbed damage that would have destroyed planets. Its weapons fired with perfect accuracy, each shot destroying or crippling an enemy ship. The vessel's maneuverability was impossible for something so large. It dodged attacks, repositioned constantly, always staying one step ahead of its enemies. Lieutenant Yoon-hee and her fighter squadron watched from a safe distance, their small craft unable to participate in a battle of this scale. I've never seen anything like this, one of her pilots said over the comm. None of us have, Yoon-hee replied. That's the point. On the Titan's bridge, Tae-Yang coordinated the battle with calm precision. Starboard batteries target the cruiser cluster at coordinates 479. Port side focus on their carrier group. Aft weapons provide covering fire. Multiple targets locked, his weapons officer reported. Fire. The Titan's secondary weapons opened up. Unlike the main cannon, these were more conventional energy weapons and missile systems. But conventional didn't mean weak. Each shot hit with devastating force. Draxian ships exploded or broke apart under the assault. Dr. Miran monitored the dimensional drive carefully. Captain, we're generating significant spatial distortion. The fabric of space-time is under stress. Will it hold? Taeyang asked. For now, yes, but we should avoid firing the main weapon again for at least 10 minutes. Understood. Taeyang studied the tactical display. The Draxian fleet was breaking apart. Ships were trying to retreat, but the Helios gate could only handle a few vessels at a time. Helm, position us between them and the gate. Don't let any of them escape. The Titan moved with surprising speed, cutting off the Draxian retreat. Taeyang opened a channel to the entire enemy fleet. Attention, Draxian forces. You have seen what we can do. You know you cannot win. Power down your weapons and surrender, or we will destroy every single one of your ships. You have 2 minutes to decide. In the chaos of the battlefield, Commander Drask sat in his damaged command chair. Half his fleet was gone. His 3 most powerful ships had been erased from existence. And that human vessel still looked undamaged, ready to continue fighting. He had 2 choices: surrender and face disgrace when he returned home, or fight to the death and take his remaining crews with him. It wasn't really a choice at all. This is Commander Drask. He broadcast to his fleet. All ships power down weapons. We surrender. One by one, the Draxian vessels went dark. The battle was over. Taeyang nodded with satisfaction. Secure the prisoners. Send medical teams to assist with casualties on both sides. And someone get Admiral Jaewon on the line. We have a lot to discuss. On the Indomitable, Jaewon received the transmission. His crew was cheering. Despite their losses, despite everything they had endured, Earth had won. More than won. They had proven something important. Captain Seo, Jaewon said. That was the most impressive display of military power I've ever seen. Thank you, Admiral. But this was just the beginning. Taeyang's image appeared on the screen. He looked tired but satisfied. The galaxy laughed at us. They treated us like children playing at war. I think they're not laughing anymore. No, Jaewon agreed. I don't think they are. Across the system, other forces had been watching the battle. Union ships hung back, monitoring everything. Now they began to move, approaching cautiously. Their commanders were silent, processing what they had witnessed. A single human vessel had destroyed an entire Draxian armada. It had weapons that violated known physics. It had technology that shouldn't exist. And somewhere in the back of every alien mind was a single, terrifying question. If humans could build one of these ships, how many more did they have? The answer to that question would reshape the galaxy. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, Earth. News of the battle at Helios Gate spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting footage of the fight. Every government was holding emergency meetings. Every military was analyzing the data, trying to understand how humanity had hidden such power. In the Grand Council chamber on Varantis Prime, chaos ruled. Delegates from dozens of species shouted at each other. Some demanded explanations. Others called for military action. A few sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Chancellor Vex banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Silence. We will proceed in an orderly fashion. The room gradually quieted, though tension remained thick in the air. Vex gestured toward the center of the chamber. Ambassador Donghyun Park of Earth will now address the council. Donghyun walked to the speaking platform. He had barely slept since the battle. Every government in the Union wanted answers. Some wanted apologies. Most wanted guarantees that Earth wouldn't use its new power against them. He stood before the assembled aliens, many of whom had mocked him just days earlier. Now they watched him with very different expressions: fear, anger, respect. It was the last emotion that mattered most to him. Members of the council, Donghyun began. For 53 years, Earth has been part of this union. We came to you with open hearts and open minds. We wanted friendship. We wanted partnership. We wanted to be equals among the stars. He paused, looking around the room. Instead, we found mockery. Our ships were called jokes. Our soldiers were used as shields. Our diplomats were treated like children. Our technology was dismissed. Our culture was ridiculed. And through it all, we endured, we smiled. We accepted our place at the bottom of your hierarchy because we needed the Union's protection. A Velkari delegate stood up. You built a weapon of mass destruction in secret. You violated treaty provisions about military development. Show me the treaty, Donghyun said calmly. Show me where it says we couldn't develop our own defense technology. You'll find no such clause because there isn't one. We broke no laws. We violated no agreements. We simply built something you didn't think we were capable of building. One ship destroyed an entire fleet, another delegate shouted. What's to stop you from using it against Union members? The same thing that stops you from using your weapons against us, Dong-hyun replied. Common decency. Mutual benefit. The understanding that we're stronger together than apart. He leaned forward. The real question is, what's to stop you from continuing to treat us as inferiors? The room erupted again. Dong-hyun waited for silence, then continued. The EDS Titan is not the only ship of its class. We have 4 more in various stages of completion. Within 6 months, Earth will have a fleet of 5 Titan-class dreadnoughts. They will patrol our territories. They will protect our interests. And yes, they will make sure that no one ever treats humanity as a joke again. This is a threat, someone yelled. No, Dong-hyun said firmly. This is a statement of fact. Earth is no longer asking for respect. We're demanding it. We want equal representation in the Council. We want equal voice in Union decisions. We want our colonies to receive the same protection as everyone else's. We want to be treated as the peers we always should have been. Chancellor Vex stood up. And if we refuse? Dong-hyun met his eyes. Then Earth will withdraw from the Union. We'll take our ships and our technology and leave. You'll lose a valuable member, and we'll lose protection we no longer need. The choice is yours. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate understood what had just happened. Earth had called their bluff. For decades, the Union had kept humanity dependent and weak, using the threat of expulsion to maintain control. Now that threat was meaningless. Earth didn't need the Union anymore. The Union needed Earth. Meanwhile, at the Helios Gate, repair operations were underway. Commander Sang-woo had arrived with a team of engineers and supplies. The damaged ships of Earth's Third Fleet were slowly being restored to fighting condition. Sang-woo walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, checking damage reports. He found Admiral Jae-won in the ship's medical bay getting his head wound treated. You look terrible, Sang-woo said. You should see the other guys, Jae-won replied with a slight smile. Oh wait, you can't, they don't exist anymore. The dimensional cascade cannon performed better than expected, Sang-woo admitted. No power fluctuations. No structural stress. Dr. Miran says we could fire it continuously with only minimal cooldown periods. Good, because something tells me we're going to need it. On the Titan, Captain Taeyang met with Captain Hana Lee. She had requested a tour of the ship, eager to learn everything about its systems. Taeyang was happy to oblige. He respected her tactical skills and knew she would eventually command a vessel of her own. They walked through the massive corridors of the ship. Everything was larger than on normal vessels. The scale was almost overwhelming. How many crew members does it take to run this thing? Hana asked. 2,000, Taeyang replied. Plus another 500 for support functions. It's a small city, really. They entered the main engineering section. Dr. Miran was there working with a team of scientists. She looked up as they approached. Captain Lee, welcome aboard, Miran said. I understand you want to know about our systems? Everything, Hana replied. How do the shields work? How do you power the main weapon? Where did the technology come from? Miran smiled. The short answer? Antarctica. What? 20 years ago we found something buried under the ice. Ancient ruins. Millions of years old. Inside we discovered archives containing mathematical formulas and engineering principles far beyond our understanding. Miran pulled up a holographic display. This is dimensional physics. The ability to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. Whoever left those archives for us, they wanted us to find them. Why? Hana asked. We don't know. But Dr. Miran has a theory, Taeyang said. Miran nodded. I think humanity isn't new to the galaxy. I think we're old. Very old. I think our ancestors were once one of the most advanced civilizations in the universe. Something happened to them. They fell, they regressed, but they left behind instructions for their descendants. For us, they left us a path back to greatness. That's incredible, Hana said. It's just a theory, Miran cautioned. But the evidence supports it. The archives were specifically designed to be found by humans. The mathematics work with our understanding of physics. It's like someone left us an inheritance waiting for us to be ready to claim it. Back on Earth, President Kyung-mi addressed the planet. Billions of people watched as their leader explained what had happened. For too long we have accepted being treated as lesser beings, Kyungmi said. We told ourselves it was necessary. We told ourselves to be patient. We told ourselves that respect would come eventually. But respect is never given freely to those who don't demand it. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, humanity stands as an equal power in the galaxy. Not because we asked nicely, not because we begged, but because we built something that forced the galaxy to acknowledge our worth. The Titan-class fleet is not just a weapon, it's a statement. We are done apologizing for our existence. The speech was broadcast across Union space. Reactions varied. Some species expressed cautious support. Others openly feared Earth's new power. But everyone was talking about humanity in a way they never had before. With seriousness, with consideration, with respect. 3 days later, Chancellor Vex contacted Ambassador Dong Hyun privately. The Velkari leader looked old and tired. Your demands, Vex said. The Council has discussed them. And? Dong Hyun asked. Earth will receive a permanent seat on the Security Council. Your military will be integrated into Union forces as a primary combat group, not as support. Your colonies will receive full protection under Union law, and your voice in council votes will carry equal weight to any other member. Dong Hyun felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Chancellor. Don't thank me, Vex said. You forced this. You put a weapon to our heads and demanded respect. We put a weapon in our hands, Dong Hyun corrected, and asked to be treated fairly. There's a difference. Vex was quiet for a moment. I underestimated you. We all did. We saw humans as primitive, as weak. We were wrong. Yes, Dong Hyun agreed. You were. What will Earth do now? Vex asked. Now that you have this power? Protect our people. Explore the galaxy. Maybe help others who are being treated the way we were. Dong Hyun leaned back in his chair. We didn't build the Titan fleet to conquer anyone. We built it so no one could conquer us. We don't want war. We want peace. But we want peace as equals, not as subjects. I hope you mean that, Vex said. So do I, Dong Hyun replied. The call ended. Dong Hyun sat in his office looking out at the stars. He thought about Admiral Jae-won and the crews who had risked everything at Helios Gate. He thought about Commander Sang-woo and the engineers who had worked themselves to exhaustion, building the impossible. He thought about all the humans who had endured mockery and disrespect, who had remained patient when patience seemed pointless. They had earned this moment, not through violence or cruelty, but through determination and ingenuity. They had proven that being underestimated could be an advantage. They had shown that humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical power. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Helios Gate. The galaxy looked very different now. Admiral Jae-won stood in his new office at Union Military Command. He was Fleet Admiral now, overseeing all of Earth's military operations across dozens of star systems. The promotion had come with new responsibilities and new challenges, but also with new respect. He watched through his window as ships from 100 different worlds moved through space in coordinated patterns. Among them, 5 massive dark shapes stood out like wolves among sheep. The Titan-class fleet had become operational. 5 dreadnoughts, each one capable of changing the course of a battle single-handedly. Captain Hanali commanded one of them now. The EDS Valiant was a hybrid design, combining traditional Earth military systems with Titan technology. It wasn't as powerful as the original Titan, but it was faster and more versatile. Hana had proven to be an excellent commander, leading joint operations with alien forces who once would have dismissed her completely. A message came through on Jae-won's personal terminal. He smiled when he saw who it was from. Admiral, Captain Tae-yang's face appeared on the screen. We have a situation. What kind of situation? Jae-won asked. The kind that requires careful thinking and possibly large guns. There's something happening at the edge of Union space. Ships are disappearing. Colonies are going silent. And whatever is causing it, it's not Draxian. Jae-won's smile faded. Show me. Tae-yang transmitted data files. Jae-won studied them carefully. Over the past 3 weeks, 7 ships had vanished without trace. 2 small colonies had stopped responding to communications, and sensor networks along the outer rim were detecting strange energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. Unknown hostiles? Jae-won asked. That's our assessment. Chancellor Vex is calling an emergency council session. He wants Earth's input. Of course he does. We're the ones with the biggest guns now. Jae-won stood up. I'll be there. Prepare the Titan for possible deployment. Already done, sir. The Grand Council chamber was crowded when Jaewon arrived. Every major species had sent representatives. The atmosphere was tense. Fear filled the room, something Jaewon had never seen before in Union leadership. Chancellor Vex stood at the center. "Admiral Jaewon, thank you for coming. We need Earth's help." It was strange hearing those words. 6 months ago, the Council had treated Earth as expendable. Now they were asking for help. Times had certainly changed. "What do we know about the threat?" Jaewon asked. A holographic display activated, showing the outer rim. Red markers indicated where incidents had occurred. "They're attacking from beyond mapped space," a Torgathi military commander explained. "Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. Our sensors barely register them before they strike." "How many ships?" Jaewon asked. "Unknown, but enough to overwhelm our border defenses." Jaewon studied the tactical data. The attack pattern was sophisticated. Whoever these enemies were, they knew how to fight. "We'll need a coordinated response. Multiple species working together. That's why we need you," Vex said. "Earth has proven capable of unconventional solutions, and your Titan fleet could be decisive." "We'll help," Jaewon agreed. "But we do this as equals. Earth ships fight alongside Union forces, not as cannon fodder." "Of course," Vex said quickly. "Times have changed, Admiral." "Yes," Jaewon agreed. "They have." 3 days later, a joint fleet assembled at the edge of Union space. Ships from Earth, Velkar, Torgath, Rendax, and a dozen other worlds gathered together. It was the largest combined force in Union history. And leading it was Fleet Admiral Jaewon Kim of Earth. Captain Hana brought the Valiant into formation alongside Captain Taeyang's Titan. Lieutenant Yoon-hee commanded a mixed squadron of human and alien fighters. Commander Sang-woo had equipped many of the ships with upgraded shield systems based on Titan technology. On Earth, President Kyung-mi watched the fleet deployment with Dr. Miran. The scientist had become one of Kyung-mi's most trusted advisors. "Do you think we can win?" Kyung-mi asked. "Humans always find a way," Miran replied. "That's what makes us special." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the last known location of the mysterious attackers. They emerged near a devastated colony world. Buildings were destroyed. Ships lay in ruins. But there were no bodies. No survivors. Just empty destruction. "Scan for life signs," Jaewon ordered. "Nothing, sir," a sensor officer reported. "Whatever attacked here, they took everyone." Then the sensors lit up with new contacts. Ships began emerging from what looked like tiers in space itself. They were organic-looking vessels covered in what might have been armor or might have been skin. They moved in ways that defied physics, accelerating and turning without visible engines. "All ships, battle stations," Jaewon ordered. "Taeyang, what are we looking at?" On the Titan's bridge, Taeyang studied the enemy vessels. Unknown design, unknown origin, but definitely hostile. "They're positioning for an attack run." "Then let's not give them the first shot," Jaewon said. "All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten Union space." The battle began. The alien vessels were fast and agile, but the joint fleet had advantages they didn't expect. Human tactical thinking combined with alien firepower created a fighting force greater than the sum of its parts. Hana coordinated her ship's weapons with precision. "Target the lead vessel. Fire when locked." The Valiant's main guns opened up. Energy beams cut through space, striking the alien ship. It shuddered but didn't break. These things were tough. "All ships concentrate fire," Jaewon ordered. "Don't spread your attacks. Focus on one target at a time and bring them down." It was basic tactics, but in the chaos of battle, basic tactics often won fights. The fleet adjusted its firing patterns. 3, 4, 5 ships would target a single enemy vessel, overwhelming its defenses. One by one, the alien ships began to fall, but more kept coming. Tiers in space opened up across the battlefield, and new enemy vessels poured through. This wasn't just a raid, it was an invasion. "Taeyang, we need the big gun," Jaewon said. "Understood." Charging the dimensional cascade cannon. Taeyang looked at Dr. Miran. "Any concerns?" "Just don't miss," she replied. The Titan turned toward the largest cluster of enemy ships. Its main weapon began to power up, energy readings climbing to impossible levels. The other ships in the fleet moved away, giving the dreadnought room to work. "Weapon charged," Miran reported. "Firing solution locked. Fire," Taeyang ordered. Reality bent. Space twisted. The dimensional cascade cannon fired, and everything in its path simply ceased to exist. 15 alien ships vanished in an instant. The tiers in space they had emerged from collapsed, sealing shut. The remaining enemy vessels hesitated. Then, as if receiving orders, they turned and fled back through the tiers they had come from. Within minutes, the battlefield was empty except for the joint fleet. Status report, J1 requested. Minor damage across the fleet, his tactical officer reported. No ships destroyed. Casualties minimal. It was a victory, but not a complete one. The enemy had retreated, not been defeated. They would be back. J1 opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, well done. You fought with courage and skill. More importantly, you fought together. That's how we'll win this war. Not as separate species, but as one unified force. On various ships across the fleet, different beings heard those words. Some were moved. Others were skeptical. But all of them had just witnessed something important. They had seen what cooperation could achieve. They had seen humans leading not through dominance, but through competence. Back on Earth, the news of the battle spread quickly. Humanity had led a joint fleet to victory against an unknown threat. Earth's tactical doctrines were being adopted across the Union. Human engineers were training alien crews. Human diplomats were negotiating treaties as equals. Ambassador Dong Hyun sat in a cafe in New Seoul, enjoying a rare moment of peace. His tablet showed messages from a dozen different governments, all wanting to establish closer ties with Earth. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, military alliances. The humans were no longer at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. They were players in their own right. A young woman approached his table. She wore a military uniform with new insignia he didn't recognize. Ambassador Park? She asked. Yes? I'm Specialist Jinsu Park. I'm your nephew. Dong-hyun blinked in surprise. Jinsu? I haven't seen you since you were a child. I've been assigned to Earth's new communications division. We're establishing diplomatic channels with species that never spoke to us before. Jinsu smiled. It's amazing, Uncle. 6 months ago, they wouldn't return our calls. Now they're asking for our advice. Times change, Dong-hyun said. Because we changed them, Jinsu replied. We didn't wait for respect. We earned it, Dong-hyun nodded. It was true. Earth had taken control of its own destiny. They had built something impossible. They had forced the galaxy to acknowledge their worth. And now they were proving every day that the respect they demanded was deserved. On the Titan, Captain Taeyang and Dr. Miran stood in the archives room, studying ancient data from Antarctica. They had discovered something new in the files, coordinates, a location far beyond Union space. This might be where our ancestors came from, Miran said quietly. The home of whoever left us that technology. Should we tell the president? Taeyang asked.